when I made that switch to playing the hour orchestra, percussion. Now I really need to.
When did you start playing the trombone, and why did you start trombone instead of other instruments?
I started playing trombone when I was in the 6th grade. So for me, I was about 10 years old, and I grew up in Texas. And in Texas, that's when the band programs start in 6th grade. And for me, I started playing trombone because my father had played trombone until he was in 9th grade. It was just a fun thing for him. There were no professional musicians in my family, but I thought, oh, he played, so that's probably a cool thing. So I had a choice between the trombone, the trumpet, and the saxophone, because my mom really liked Kenny G, which is unfortunate, but true. And so I tried out the 3 different instruments on the day that we had the opportunity to try instruments. And the first sound that I made on trombone, one of the teachers said, "Wow, that's a really great sound. We have to put that kid on trombone." So that's how that began.
Like Weston, I began playing around age 10, but it wasn't by my choice. My mother actually chose the trombone for me. I've got 2 older sisters, and every child was to play an instrument or sing. That's the way it was going to be done in our family, and actually that's the way it's done in my family too, with my children. But she liked the sound of the trombone, and she said, "Well, if you're not going to pick an instrument for yourself, I'll pick it for you." So I came home one day, and there was a trombone sitting on the sofa, and she said, "That's your instrument." So, as luck would have it, I liked it.
I see. Then would you tell us about the special features of trombone compared to trumpet or saxophone?
You want to take that one?
Sure. The special features of trombone. Well, obviously, it's one of the larger instruments. If you straightened out all the tubing on a trombone, it would be roughly 10 feet long, and it can be a difficult instrument for a young person to begin with because it requires some arm length and a great deal of lung power. But one of the reasons that I like it is I used to play sports. Well, I still do play some sports, but as a young person, I played a lot of sports and got a lot of adrenaline and excitement from playing sports. And as I got older and became better on the trombone, I got the same form of enjoyment and excitement from playing this instrument. It's a very physical instrument to have to play. It's also the second loudest instrument in the orchestra, apart from percussion instruments. So I like that aspect. I like playing loud.
Weston, tell us about your 2007 Carnegie Hall debut, and how did you feel?
Back in 2007, I played the Larsen Concertino. It's originally written for trombone and string orchestra, but I played it for trombone and piano in Viol Recital Hall at Carnegie Hall. And that was my first time ever playing there in a solo capacity. I had played there several times before with an orchestra. And I was invited by the Bulgarian consulate because there's a Bulgarian concert series that's run every year, and every year they have an opening gala performance at Carnegie Hall. And so they asked me if I would perform there. And for me, it was a great experience. I think it's a lot of classical musicians' dreams to get a chance to play in a recital setting at Carnegie Hall. It's one of the most famous venues in the world. So for me, back at the time, I guess I was 5 years ago, I was a little more new, and for me it was fun. It was fun. Oftentimes when you're in an audition setting and you're playing, there's a lot of nerves and anxiety, but for whatever reason, that particular point in time, for me, it was just a really enjoyable experience. I had a really great time. It went pretty well as it was going to go, considering that I was playing in Carnegie Hall as a soloist for the first time, and it was something I'll never forget. And there aren't many trombone players who get the opportunity to do something like that. So I really tried my best to take advantage of it, because trombone is not usually recognized as a major soloistic instrument. So our opportunities to stand in front of an audience that's not only other trombone players is rare. So it was great.
Thank you. What is your favorite piece? It could be opera music or it could be ballet music.
It's always changing.
Okay.
It's whatever I'm most inspired by at the moment. I can say in general, when I was a student, Mahler was my favorite composer at the time, and Mahler's Third Symphony and Mahler's Second Symphony were probably my two absolute favorite pieces. But that's because as a student, you're not really exposed to a large range of repertoire. You're exposed mostly to symphonic repertoire. Most kids who are in conservatory are aiming to play in a symphony orchestra. And as luck would have it, I wound up playing in maybe the premier opera orchestra in the world. And if you only know symphonic music, that means you don't know Puccini, and you don't know Verdi, and you really don't know Wagner. And when I made that switch to playing in the opera orchestra, now I really think Puccini is my favorite composer. And even though the trombone part is not the most interesting, my favorite piece of music in the whole world is La Bohème. Puccini's La Bohème. I think it's the most beautiful thing ever written. I only have about 25 notes or so to play, but it's absolutely gorgeous. When I was a student, I was more interested in the pieces where the trombones got to play a lot, and my part was individually very important. But I think playing in an opera orchestra, you learn to step away from the spotlight, and you gain an appreciation for the bigger picture. So, long story short, my favorite piece is La Bohème.
Can you tell us about your teaching philosophy and specific teaching techniques or methods? This is for both of you.
Why don't you start first?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm also a teacher, and in many respects, I think although playing with the National Symphony has really been my platform for doing other things, such as Great Mountains Music Festival. I think my role as a teacher now is just about as important as my role as a performer. I run the trombone studio at the University of Maryland at College Park, and I take that very seriously. And it takes up a lot of my time, but giving of the transference of knowledge that one has accumulated over the years, for me it's a given. You've got to pass on what you've learned to those who are seeking it. So in that way, it's an extremely fulfilling portion of what I do as a musician. It's absolutely wonderful.
What do you think about Korean students? You just taught several students here.
I think they all played very well at a high level, and I think what Weston was doing, and I was adding little bits from the audience, is we're trying to draw more out of them. We're trying to and with some success, but it took some pulling.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your first impression about Great Mountains Music Festival, and also about Poundtown?
So far, it's been great. I mean, the area is really beautiful. The audiences seem to be very responsive to the concerts that we've played, and it's always gratifying to play for people who appreciate the work that you've put forward and they appreciate the music. And it seems like there's been a little bit of a lack of exposure to brass repertoire. So I think it's a new sound for a lot of people that come to these concerts, and it's nice to be a part of that.